All right, and covering our second topic for today, Trump's immigration plan has obviously struggled to meet their numbers. And I will go into that, but they're set to do even less than the Biden administration. So this is which is actually pretty impressive. And this is to a lot of things. One is the lack of manpower. One is the lack of space for processing. Two is that three is that even when they do get the processing space, like in Guantanamo or foreign countries, they don't have enough immigration judges to actually process the number of detainees that they have. So there's a lot of problems here. So the Trump administration had a solution to this. The solution was to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which for those of you at home who may be going through, some sort of middle school history class or some college course, look up the Alien and Sedition Acts of the 1790s. This will give you a pretty rough estimate of what this is. But specifically, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 says that basically whenever there's a war declared or there's an invasion, perpetrated by a nation, then the president can proclaim it publicly, and pretty much all non-citizens, as long as they're 14 years or older, can be apprehended and removed. And there's really nothing any other branch of government can do to stop this. I mean, it's a wartime power. It's only been invoked three times in the entire history of the U.S. None of them are good. The War of 1812, World War One with German, Austrian, and Italians, and then World War Two, obviously the Japanese internment camps, which were unbelievably harsh and cruel and not good. So President Trump is trying to use a notoriously bad wartime power that has only ever been used for the darkest parts of American history. And he's using this to upscale his immigration deportation plan because it allows him to basically circumvent due process, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, um, and the story doesn't end here. So, and Darren, I'll get your viewpoint here in just a second. But
Oh, you're fine.
so a judge blocks this, right? A judge says, "Hey, you can't. No, this is not going to work. This is not allowed." Um, so Trump was trying to deport some Venezuelan migrants, and about 250, a little bit less. And a judge said, "Nope, you can't do this under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Can't be done." Fly them back. They're in the middle of the air. They're going to El Salvador to be in a prison there because the Venezuelan government won't take them. And the Trump administration basically tells them, like, go kick rocks, Mr. Judge. Like, this is not up for judicial review. Like, you can't stop us. So they're supposed to have a hearing later on this week to determine whether or not that's even allowed. And we're going to be going from there. But just really quick, Darren, I just am curious. What are your thoughts on this plan to accelerate the deportations?
Well, like you said, Trump has really been struggling to deport people and, to bolster the point. If he keeps at this rate, he'll have deported less people than Biden deported and less people than Obama deported. Now, far less people are coming in right now. The border is incredible, one of the most secure it's been in, oh, I don't know how long Trump will say in all of history, but I can't imagine that that is correct. So I'll say in at least contemporary history, it's probably the most secure we've had. With that being said, though, just because the inflow has decreased substantially, the outflow uh, has not. So Trump is wanting to expedite things, as he should, and I support him trying to expedite these things. Uh, you know, it's one of those things. I'm for it. Basically, I'm for what he's doing. In a perfect world, we could have due process, and we could quibble about the like human rights and all that crap. But
Yeah, just
I,
just human rights. They're
oh
just
yeah,
human rights.
oh yeah,
That the hell's wrong with you? The hell's wrong with you?
yeah.
Not the pearl clutch, but
But yeah, I mean, it's like this is the problem, kind of inherent in the matter. Like we, 10 million came in under Biden, and we have no idea who they are. So, even the good ones, most of which are, most of the ones who came in, great people. They came for a better life, yada, yada. They wanted to escape the, impoverishment or repression in Venezuela. And, honestly, I kind of blame that on Trump. I won't go in, I won't digress that far right now. Uh, but all that being said, 10 million have came in, a lot of them Venezuelans. We have no idea who they are. And so the Trump admin is saying, oh, well, these 230 people, I think, roughly, that they sent on a plane over to El Salvador, these are all Tren de Aragua, gangsters. And, we can, it's totally justified for us to use this act and forgo due
really.
process. Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's his argument, and I basically agree. I mean, I
Now,
I imagine they're up to no good.
now I do have to ask, and I don't mean to cut you off, but when you say that you agree, do you mean that you agree in the sense that like this is the most effective way to do it, or do you agree in the sense that like according to the letter and spirit of the act, right, that this qualifies?
Oh. Well, here, I think things need to be made more efficient, but from how I see the law, I'm not sure that these qualify. I'm not sure that this is legal or be upheld in court. I mean, the Supreme Court has acknowledged since Japanese internment that was wrong. Now, the deal with Japanese internment was a little different. Those Japanese people were U.S. citizens, so this is slightly different. But again, we're not at war. That's just kind of something Trump said. So, in my opinion, if I'm being honest, I don't think this probably qualifies. But I'm willing to bend the law to achieve my own ends. I'm willing to kind of. I'm okay with if he wants to kind of, you know,
Right. Well, I mean, he can't just circumvent the third branch of government for no reason. So you're saying like this one is just justifiable enough, even if it's not exactly what the law's for. You're saying that this is just an effective way to do what is the most effective, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're in such an extreme situation that I think it's justified to take extreme measures that might not otherwise, qualify us to do it. I mean, if only like 200,000 people came in under Biden's presidency, it would seem a bit extreme. But, when you're dealing with 10 million, to me, it seems justified to say, okay, we're just going to do whatever we need to get you out of here. And people make all these, they'll quibble about, oh, it's not humane. It's like it looks pretty humane to me. I mean, these people aren't being shot. It's not like we're
Well,
killing these people.
I mean, let's be very clear. Like, they're not going to Mexico or somewhere else in Central and South America. Like, they're going to El Salvador. And I'm sure you've seen that the reports from that prison that they're going to is that, like, these people will very likely go under, like, sexual assault. They will very likely physical assault. Uh, You know, I mean, I can't imagine that you would see what they would go through. And they haven't even been convicted necessarily of a crime. I mean, to go through that with a lack of due process to me is hard to justify, especially like if you want to accomplish what you want to accomplish, there's a way to do it, and you just have to go through Congress, And the Democrats, they're probably going to support you right now, like at the end of the day.
Well, you say that,
Ask
I
for
don't
more
know.
manpower, ask for more funding for detention centers, ask for more immigration judges. Like and Trump will fill them. Trump will fill them tomorrow. Like, but I to invoke this is a wartime power, and there's not a single time that this has been invoked where it's like, yeah, that was a good idea. Yeah, that turned out well for us.
Oh yeah, I mean in the past that I mean,
And a
you
judge
know,
told him no. That's the other part we're not. That's the other
oh
part we're
yeah,
not.
yeah.
Like a judge told him you can't do this, and they're doing it anyway. You don't see any problem with this?
But I think it's kind of cool that he's just ignoring the judge, honestly.
Really?
I mean, I think it's cool because I mean, screw the judge. I mean, yeah, but you know me, I'm more okay with authoritarian rule. I don't think what is this guy, like some district court judge? I mean, he the idea that he can, put restraints on the president just seems so unserious to me. It's like, what, are we a real country or are we not? Can the president do what he needs to, please? So, I'm
I
okay.
I
I'm
can't
totally.
I super can't buy that. There's no way. I mean, at the end of the day, you're telling me that like when Biden wants to get rid of student debt, like sorry, that
I
can't be
wish he
done.
would have.
That
I
can't
wish
be
he
done with
would have. He'd
executive
make my
order.
life a whole lot easier. He would make my life a whole lot easier
It's not
if
even
he would.
about that for me. It's not even about that for me. It's just the fact that like listen, like at the end of the day, like if courts are telling us that like no, like the president has to go through Congress, president has to go through Congress, president has to go through Congress. I I mean, you're basically arguing for like a more like aristocratic, like or not autocratic. Sorry, autocratic society. And at the end of the day, we're a democracy, dude, with checks and balances, right? You got to honor the checks and the balances. That's just the way it works.
Well, I'm okay with moving towards autocracy or aristocracy. Like you said with the student loans, I kind of wish Biden would have had the balls to just totally defy the Supreme Court and just somehow, uh, provide this student debt relief anyway. I would have loved that.
Look,
And
they're. Oh, go ahead.
oh well, and one more thing, some of the best things Biden did were, probably in my opinion, were, you could probably call them illegal, but like when he blew up Nord Stream 2, that was cool. That was like,
Allegedly. My God, would you
oh,
throw an
okay.
allegedly
Yeah,
out there?
yeah. Okay,
Like,
allegedly,
are you trying to get us killed, Darren? Jesus. What the hell is wrong
Yeah,
with
we all
you?
know he did. We all know. And he was cool
Of
for it.
course. Of
He was
course.
cool for it.
Yeah,
So,
some poor Delta Force agent was out there, blew it up. Um,
and Biden ordered in between licks of his chocolate chip ice cream cone.
but listen, dude, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that like when Democrats want to do anything, then it takes 60 votes in the Senate. Sorry, that's the only way this government works. But then like Republicans can smash everything apart and do whatever they want, and they have the good old like who's going to stop me strategy. So like as far as I'm concerned, like these checks and balances only work if the person in the executive branch will honor them, because the Supreme Court's going to stop them with what army, you know?
Oh
And
yeah,
Democrats,
exactly.
like, sure, Biden said that the eviction moratorium was unconstitutional, and he said, "Yeah, I'm just trying to buy people more time." But then imagine a world where he does the eviction moratorium, the Supreme Court says, can't do that. Congress didn't give you approval, and he said, "I'm going to do it anyway." Do you have any idea the crackdown and the instability that would happen in our government if that happened? Like our government is held together by these checks and balances. You know what I mean? And I understand it might benefit you. It might benefit you right now, Darren. And I'm not even sure to what degree it's going to benefit you, but
Well,
it's
you
not
make a
worth
fair
it.
point. I mean, it's not like they're, you know, it's not like the number that are being deported is like in, in the multi thousands or anything. I mean, the
Well,
number is in
there's
the
not that
few low
many.
hundreds.
This is the
So,
this is the part that I think you've got to grapple with, and not just you, but I think like the right that wants deportations. There's not that many immigrants that are like literal criminals, like gang member, like violent offenders. There's just not. And like most people would say that, yeah, of course, like deport those people, deport the violent offenders, if they've assaulted a person, right? That makes total sense to a lot of Americans. But I think that like the part where you're going for is that like and I shouldn't put words in your mouth. So would you say that like if anyone comes over illegally, because out of that 10 million, let's say at least 9,500,000 of them haven't committed any crimes, right? I mean, are you going to say that we should deport all those people even though they're law-abiding contributors to our society?
one of the 10 million that came in under Biden, I would find it reasonable to deport all of them. Yeah. I mean, it's not feasible. We're not going
Sure,
to.
right. Logistics aside, I'm just trying to get like a maybe like a philosophical understanding of you here.
If I could snap my fingers and they would magically reappear in Guatemala, Honduras, Venezuela, yeah, I would.
Yeah, and see, that's the part I don't understand. Like these people haven't done anything wrong. You know what I
No,
mean?
they haven't. They haven't. They're just a strain. In fact, they're probably great people. I mean, who doesn't love Latin Americans? I mean,
Yeah,
we're honestly really lucky because if we were like bordering some, if we were accepting like, if the roles
like
were
Syria.
reversed, yeah, like Syrians, can you imagine, or Algerians?
Dear God, Darren.
Oh yeah, it
Um,
would be terrible. I mean, we are really lucky to be getting these Central and South Americans.
dude, we got
Uh,
the best cooks on the planet, the hardest workers on the planet. Like, I don't know what to tell you, Darren. Like,
oh yeah, I mean,
what's
yeah,
what's the con, Darren? Like, help me understand this.
well, there's strain on resources is all. It's just a matter of fact. It goes back to, uh, you know, yeah, it goes back to the national debt. It goes back to, well, like the strain on services. Each one of these migrants is going to, their kid has to be housed, schooled, fed. Whenever they go to the doctor, uh, they go to the emergency room, they don't have health insurance. So, you know, that has second order effects and it drives up, down the line. That's basically going to drive up premiums for the people who do pay health insurance because they're having to, pay.
subsidize effectively?
Yeah, they're subsidizing it. So, I mean, there's just a whole order of second order effects why I'm, obviously just against them being here. Now, I mean, I'll be the first to say I'm not like one of these. Trump will say, "Oh, we don't know where they're coming from. They're coming from mental health asylums. They're coming from prisons. They're all
Well,
MS."
you've gotta do some sort of propaganda to sell this to the base. Like the base isn't gonna like you rationalized that pretty well, I thought. But the base is not gonna agree with like what you said. Like if you tell these people that they're just their neighbor, Jose, right? Then they're not gonna be for deportations. They're just not, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Like Trump has to propagandize, and I'm not using propaganda in like a negative term. I mean just like he has to influence decision making. You know?
oh yeah, well, yeah. From that lens, I totally get that. I mean, he does have to sell it because I imagine so. Right now, I think we have a majority of Americans support mass deportations, just because there have been so many. But if the media were to, if it were to really go into effect, and we saw like kids and moms getting loaded into vans, and the media was blasting it 24/7, support would probably plummet pretty quickly. So I'm totally aware of, like, all of that. It's just a matter similar to other things, like my thoughts on entitlements. It's like it's going to be a hard thing, but it kind of has to be done, unfortunately.
I just I don't know. I couldn't disagree more. I think this is a uniquely bad idea. And I'm not even against deportations in general. Like if these members or these Venezuelans are part of that gang, then I'm all for, kicking them out. But like at the end of the day, like immigrants do have some level of rights, and they're not quite the rights as you and I, because you and I are citizens. But at the end of the day, like you have to give them some form of due process, and that's not my opinion, right? That's the law. You know what I mean? Like that's not something that like, some liberal Marxist is saying on the podcast. Like that's what the law is. The law is you get caught, you get detained, you get processed, and then you go before a judge, you make your case, they make your case, and then the judge orders the deportation and you get kicked out. That's the way it's worked. That's the way it always. And the only problem with that system is that it takes forever because we have a limit on the immigration judges, and we don't have enough. And we don't have enough detention centers um, to
Oh
do
yeah,
what.
we have very few beds to house these people. It's
But well, they're already maxed out. I mean, that's why
Oh
this
yeah,
started to
yeah.
begin with. They're already beyond capacity. But I mean, even more than all that, forget the manpower, forget all that. There's no political will. Republicans know, like you said, once CNN goes in there, once the New York Times gets in there, and they show you what's in these detention centers, they show you what's in these Venezuela or not Venezuela, El Salvadorian jails where these migrants are being held. Then when they get down to Guantanamo Bay and they show you what goes on, I mean, they had to exit Guantanamo Bay already for human rights abuses. Like it, the American people will not stand for this. When you show a suburban mom drinking wine, a video of an 8-year old girl being stripped from her mother, right? I mean, that to them is going to be viewed as a bigger crime than that mom hopping across the border and having an anchor baby. That's just the way I think that the Republican Party is very aware of that. And so they're trying to get around that by just kicking them out as fast as possible, you know?
Yeah, like I mean, agreed. There's just when people are exposed to the reality of it, there's just not going to be a lot of support for it. But my point stands. I think it is in the interest of the American people for it to be done, and I am America first, so that's just
Interesting.
kind of my thought on it. But uh, is there any more to say on it? Uh,
I mean, I've said everything I want to cover, but I'll give you the final word, or if you have any questions, then go for it, kid.
I've really said all I want to say on it. You want to shoot over to that